that what your changes mentioned?
Yep.
And then we need to, page 2, second paragraph from the bottom. That will be an engine brake, not a jig brake.
Okay,
That's it.
On 3, Lynn, page 3, item 3, third paragraph down. It says the web stated that the room inside the home being used for daycare is 12 by 12 in a home of 4,000 square feet. And that doesn't really matter. According to the code, it's 15% of the ground floor space. So they were kind of rebutting that we're not using more than 15%,
right.
but it's of the ground floor space, and they might have 8 floors of, a small amount of footage that goes straight up in the air, and that doesn't fit the code, from what I understand.
I just wrote down what she said.
Oh, I understand, but I'm not saying we need to change the
Change
minutes,
anything.
but I'm saying that if they submit an application,
Maybe you want to discuss it.
we need to make sure that is discussed, or,
They have submitted their application.
That was
and it's been
them
approved.
submitting the
And
application.
they got it that night, didn't they?
They did.
Yes.
so, again, we might have just passed one that doesn't work.
If in fact they use it more than 15%, but I mean, I get totally what you're saying.
Yeah.
But each time we go through this, for me personally, it reminds me of how much more, I'm gonna call it due diligence that we need to do with our business applicants.
But if we had a good site plan, and maybe we did, I don't recall, but if we had a good site plan showing their ground floor footage and where their space is, would be good.
I think that's probably up to us for each time he's got either renewal and or new application for us to really know this and go through that.
But we'll never know, we'll forget, we'll never be that good. So I think we
But
gotta
there it
have it
is.
in the application process.
Yeah, once we get the application process, now if we're gonna do this on renewals, we need to mail that out
Yeah.
with their notice to renew, so that they'll fill that out. Are you gonna have them all come back before the council again?
Oh, I don't know.
For me, I don't know if they all need to come back, there's some pretty simple ones, but there certainly may be others that may need to.
That's a question.
I mean, I would think if someone came to you and gave you an application and you had some thoughts, that maybe you knew something that could, or maybe a complaint or something, that would maybe have them come in front of us, so before it gets to the complaint. Not to put the onus on you per se, but there's a couple that I don't know, I don't know how to tackle that.
Yeah.
Any suggestions?
No,
Okay. That's a tough one.
it is.
I think that's,
If they go over their square footage on that main level, they can't be available to go on to that small business category.
But why is it only the ground level, the main level?
does it say main, does it say main level?
Ground level, and we discussed that in detail, and decided ground was the right.
I'm just curious why that is.
Should be the
You have
square-
this space,
square
does it
footage
matter
of
if
the
it's up, down, stairs, main level, where you're using it?
No, it doesn't matter. They can have their percentage of their space anywhere in their home. It just can't be more than 15% of the ground floor space.
So you need to make a really long, one level
Or
house
main
rather
level.
than two
Yeah.
levels. It just doesn't make sense to me why it makes a
Yeah.
difference.
Got the garage.
Oh, wide difference instead of just overall floor space?
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of preschools, they use the basement area because it's open and there aren't the hazards there, and, they can have that built specifically. But that's gonna be a bigger percentage of their ground floor. I
Okay,
don't know.
all I
Just-
meant to bring up was maybe add something to the application.
Well, and also, or when they come in, I mean, that 25 to
No,
50%
we don't want
of
to
site
change
plan.
notes, don't want to change code, just
We didn't have.
Where's that ground?
I would
floor?
answer, I haven't used any of my ground floor
Did
level.
that come
Where's the
from,
basement?
Did that come from the state or the county or
12 by
the
12,
ground level?
40 by 30 house,
Us
12 by
previous
12
code.
bedroom size
Okay.
is 12%. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how easy it is to run up on that number.
Oh, yeah, it's easy to figure
On
it
that
out.
15%, it's easy to run up on that number.
Well, that's been the minutes, and I know that there's an, you know, that can be a business application discussion, but minute-wise, are we good on these particular
Yeah.
minutes? Okay, Chair will entertain a motion on these.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from November 7th with the minor changes we did.
Okay, we have a motion for November 7th meeting. A second?
Second.
We have a second. Any last discussion on the minutes?
I abstain. Still passes, well, maybe.
And
I just didn't have a chance to control.
so, any last discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, got 3 and 2 abstentions. Let's pass. Okay, we're getting down to number 11, Recorder's Office warrants approval to public meeting training. So first, let's turn the time over to Lynn.
Always still got hot dog.
Okay, got the warrants there in front of you. Phone expense reimbursed, Utah Local Governments Trust, Workers' Comp Policy, renewal, Polaris Methods, that's our software company for the quarterly support. Smith Hartfordson invoice. Most of that was conversation that Ryan had in regards to a subdivision. So just regular legal business, engineering invoices are noted there. Public Works, one engineering invoice for road work. And a charge made for market paint at O'Reilly Auto. Eric's Blue Stakes hours figured there, and the snow removal. I just got today and I apologize, I was gonna bring that Chip and Eric for you to look at and I did not, but there were 3 days that they plowed, Thanksgiving being the first one. And then municipal, the good hour bill again, CenturyLink. I mentioned last month that we were getting into some water sampling testing that was gonna be expensive. They did test pesticides for both systems, which is an $800 bill in the regular chloroform. And water invoice there. And you, at the last meeting, it was reported that there was a problem on the Blaine Webb property up on Daniels Road. In an attempt to replace their water line, they broke the water main. Kim had to turn the water off for an afternoon, and he and Gary worked diligently to get that back in service to get Danieltown water restored. So the town went ahead and paid the expenses for this, and Blaine Webb is being billed the $211
No,
To reimburse.
$16 an hour.
for that.
Come on.
Oh, no, that's right.
And one would be a fine. I mean,
And then the payroll. They had also a water leak in the vault that Kim and Gary put some time in. And I'm pleased to get that up to $20 an hour. From Haven, power, gas, one engineering invoice, and there again, the water sampling invoice and payroll.
Okay. Chair, I'll entertain a motion on the warrant.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on warrants? All in favor? Aye.
I
Any opposed? Warrants approved.
So on the announcements, I have received all of your fraud questionnaires, I appreciate that. The town received on Friday, in the mail, the annexation is accepted for consideration into the town of Charleston on the Golub annexation that they initially brought to us, withdrew, so Charleston is entertaining it at this point. We have until, I believe it's December 29th, everyone to protest. If there are no protests, then we'll go forward with the petition. And we have attended the initial workshop for CDBG funding. They reported to us they expected to have $500,000 available for this go-round. We will hold our first hearing. Ryan is in the process of putting his project together. The hearing will be in January. It is not required to be noticed in the newspaper any longer, which is good, because it's an additional expense. But I will follow the steps as what needs to be done for posting and so forth.
Does it matter with if our town engineer or switching engineer or anything with the filing of that kind of money?
No.
Nothing?
They do a great job of it. Better than we would.
No, I was just meaning if there was any difference in companies. No.
They're happy to work with you.
I know everyone loves Ryan.
Sounds like a TV
They
show.
just hostile over there.
Okay, so you're to the training,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
so this is the last month of the year, and so we have to get through training. I think in all of our packets, we have a section here, election issues. So I thought that being that next year's the election and things have to, I think we have a June deadline for certain things coming up, that we probably can go through this. I'll read the first kind of half the page, and if other people wouldn't mind picking it up after somebody else stops, we can all get through this and share a little bit of the wording. Any questions or comments before I start? Election issues, how the powers and duties handbook. On the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, in odd number years, an election is to be held in all municipalities to fill all elective offices vacated by 12 o'clock noon on the first Monday in the January following the election. The officers elected continue in the office to which they were elected for 4 years, except in cases of death, resignation, removal, and disqualification from the office. The officers elected begin their term of office at 12 o'clock noon on the first Monday in January following their election. Each elected officer of a municipality holds office for the term for which he is elected and until his successor is chosen and qualified, unless the office becomes vacant because an office holder moves from the community or resigns. In cities of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th class, the offices of mayor and 2 council members are to be filled in municipal elections held every 4 years. The offices of the other 3 council members shall be filled in the next municipal election held 2 years later. The terms are for 4 years. These offices are filled every 4 years in municipal elections. The officers are elected in at-large elections that are held at the time and in the manner provided for electing municipal officers by the state election code. In towns, the offices of mayor and 2 council members are to be filled in municipal elections held every 4 years. The terms are for 4 years. The offices of the other 2 council members are to be filled in the next municipal election. The terms are to be for 4 years. The offices shall be filled in at-large elections that are held at the time and in the manner provided for electing municipal officers. In municipalities operating under one of the council, mayor, or council manager forms of government, the number of council members and the election cycle may be different. The elections will still be held in odd number years. where both 2 and 4-year terms are to be filled by election or appointment, the election ballot or appointment must clearly state which persons are to be elected or appointed to the shorter term and to the longer term. A 2-year term may happen when, by resignation or other reasons, an office is vacated during the term. Somebody else?
A person filing a declaration of candidacy for a municipal office must have been a resident of the municipality in which the person seeks office for at least 1 year immediately before the date of the election and meet other requirements set out in the election code. Any person elected to municipal office must be a registered voter in the municipality in which he was elected. The nominating process for municipal elected officers can be either simple or complicated depending on the municipality. In first and second class cities and in towns, the election will always be officially nonpartisan. The general process is that all qualified candidates can declare for election, and when candidates are narrowed down at primary election. Primary election is not required if the total number of candidates for a particular office do not exceed twice the number needed to fill the office. Generally, all candidates for council seats run at large unless the municipality has adopted an ordinance creating council districts, or the municipality is operating under one of the alternative forms of government and the voters choose to create council districts. Cities of 3rd, 4th, 5th class and towns may by ordinance choose to nominate candidates by using the convention system. This is a method of avoiding a primary by allowing citizens to form into conventions or committee and nominate state candidates. This usually results in something like a sagebrush party versus the pinecone party. Cities of the 3rd, 4th, or 5th class may also adopt an ordinance and have partisan primary elections for purposes of nominating candidates. This is a traditional Republican versus Democrat type campaign. Ordinances creating these options can be repealed. If repealed, the default method is an open primary. This method of nomination can be as rare as it has become almost impossible to get anyone in Utah. But the most masochists gratified to self-identify as a Democrat. Now that Ephraim City has finally given up this method, there will probably be no city in Utah that has formal partisan elections. But do not fear the demise of partisanship. The election of the larger Utah cities, which by law are required to be nonpartisan, are with the help of the process and the professional politicos becoming more and more party-oriented every year. Almost all of these candidates are identified in the press by party affiliation and run with the support of the local parties, even if the election is legally nonpartisan.
Somebody else?
Me. Individuals can also become write-in candidates. In all municipalities, the candidate must declare his write-in candidacy to the election official 60 days before the election. The election official then pre-qualifies the write-in candidate by asking the candidate if he meets the filing requirements. If not pre-qualified, the votes for the candidate are not counted. This written declaration and pre-qualification is not necessary in towns. Once elected, the officer of a municipality must maintain residency within the boundaries of the municipality during his or her term of office. If an elected officer or municipality establishes his or her principal place of residence outside the municipality during his or her term of office, the office is automatically vacant. If an elected municipal officer is absent from the municipality any time during the term of the office for a continuous period of more than 60 days without the consent of the municipal legislative body, the municipal office is automatically vacant. At least 20 days before a scheduled election, a city or town can cancel the election if it is unnecessary. State code provides that a city or town may, by resolution, cancel an election if the number of candidates, including any eligible write-in candidates, does not exceed the number of open at-large municipal offices, and there are no other municipal ballot propositions. In cities with districts, the candidates in each district must be unopposed. A resolution canceling an election must certify that one, each municipal officer candidate is unopposed, or a candidate for an at-large municipal office for which the number of candidates does not exceed the number of open at-large municipal offices. And that two, the unopposed candidate is considered by the city or town to be elected to office.
Anybody else?
A city or town that by resolution cancels a local election must give notice of the cancellation by posting notice on the statewide electronic voter information website and on the city or town's public website, website, if it has one for 15 consecutive days before the day of the scheduled election. Notice must also be published at least twice in a newspaper of general circulation within the municipality before the scheduled election. If there is no newspaper of general circulation, notice must be posted in at least 3 conspicuous places within the boundaries of the municipality at least 10 days before the scheduled election. If the city or town publishes a newsletter or periodical before the day of the scheduled election, it must include the notice of cancellation. The Utah legislature requires that each municipality adopt an ordinance establishing campaign finance disclosure requirements for candidates for city office. The ordinance must contain provisions that include a requirement that each candidate for a municipal office report his or her itemized and total campaign contributions and expenditures at least once 7 days before the election, and at least once within 30 days after an election. The financial reports must identify for each contribution of more than $50 the name of the donor of the contribution and the amount of the contribution, and for each expenditure, the name of the recipient and the amount of the expenditure. If any municipality fails to adopt the campaign finance disclosure ordinance, candidates for office in those cities must comply with the financial reporting requirements contained in Utah Code 10-3-2208. Subsections 3 through 6. A model ordinance that complies with the minimum requirements of state law is contained in the appendix. If a candidate does not comply with the campaign finance disclosure laws, the election clerk is required to remove the candidate's name from the ballot.
Thank you very much. Did we all learn something there?
And the mayor and Councilmember Bateman and Golodowski their terms end the end of 17. So there will be
Anybody's willing to come up.
an election coming up next year.
And so I think as far as dates, and without going through that again exactly, I mean, don't they have to be in by June or the end of June? Yeah, as far as that. Any other discussion or comments on the election issues or training? Appreciate the time to go and do that. We need to do that at least once a year, and we got it done. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
We have a motion, a second?
Yep,
Yeah.
second, we're out.
Here, a couple of seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
I like it.
Thanks,
Thanks, Glenn.
Before you